All right, welcome to the Conviction Fiction, directly streamed to your living rooms, where we change the narrative of life after lockup. I'm your host, Antoine Rivers, and today we're pulling back the layers on something we all feel but rarely name, and that's trauma. Have you ever wondered how trauma impacts someone's ability to reenter society after a difficult experience? Whether that experience is incarceration, addiction, or homelessness, trauma leaves a mark. And in today's episode, we're naming it, unpacking it, and talking healing. Okay. Now, this one's for you, those returning citizens who try to keep your head up, the loved one walking right beside them, or just the system impact their brother or sister doing the work within. Now, this episode is very personal to me because uh, it's the foundation of my latest book, No Turning Back, The Journey Home and the Work Within. So let's go ahead and get into unpacking trauma. All right, welcome back, guys. Look, this trauma episode is something serious, man. So I really want you, if you're listening, to take time and understand that it's coming from a real point. Let's start by talking about this word that most of us were never given a language for, and that's trauma. Now, I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but let's strip it down a little bit here. Trauma is not just about what happened to you. It's about what stayed with you. It's that fight or flight still living in your chest. It's the way you flinch when someone raises their voice. You know, those triggers when someone say something to you. It's the numbness when you should feel joy or you should feel something, but it's also that anger that can boil over for reasons that you can't even explain. And here's the truth. Many of us were already carrying trauma before we got locked up. Did you know that over 90% of justice involved youth have experienced at least one traumatic event? And for many, it's ongoing. It could have been, violence in the home or substance abuse in the home. And for most of them, it's still going. We're talking about neglect, poverty, community violence, abandonment. That's the soil some of us grew out of. That's just where we from. And instead of healing, we got punished for how we cope with that pain, which was totally unfair. And then thrown on top of that, prison. Now that's a trauma all its own, right? Strip searches, lockdowns, fights, stabbings, beatings, isolation, not knowing that someone's going to try you just for looking the wrong way. So you're not just doing time, you're surviving. But here's the hard part. When those gates do open, you step back into society, nobody hands you a trauma recovery plan. People expect you to be grateful and better, and they don't see the nightmares though. They don't see the triggers. They don't see the way that you've trained yourself not to trust anybody. They don't see the part of you that's still stuck in survival mode. I can remember when I came home and I don't know if it was a ticket. I was driving and a police siren just made my whole body freeze up. Or sometimes if we just in the house and I hear keys jingling a certain way, that transports me all the way back to count time. Right? That's trauma. So I had to ask myself, and I want you to ask yourself, am I just reacting to this moment? Are you reacting to a moment, or are you still reacting to that system? That's a big difference, because in my book, I wrote about that invisible backpack that we carry, the one that's filled with years of just suck that shit up. Just keep your head down, stay out of trouble. Don't show weakness. Those are all things that I heard and that I believe, but to my brothers, to my sisters, that backpack can get very, very heavy. And you can't climb out of your or climb into your future if you're carrying a past that you never really truly unpack. So if you're listening to this and some of this is resonating, just trust and believe that you can do it. Okay. But first we got to understand what's going on. What really happens when those gates open up? What really happens, man? Let's talk about it. I mean, I think that's very important. Um, People like throwing around the word reentry, like, I don't know, like it's just filling out a couple of job applications, um, talking to your family and moving on. But reentry is a maze. And for those of us coming out of incarceration with untreated trauma, it's like walking that maze with a blindfold on, right? Think about this. Did you know that formerly incarcerated people are more than 10 times more likely to experience major depression than the general population? And I say that coming from a personal standpoint, because if you guys remember, I was on a podcast a couple of months ago where one of my closest friends that was locked up with me committed suicide. Right? He was going through a depression. And I'm just not throwing that story out there. That's real. It's a real stat that like 10 times, if you've been locked up, you are going to experience some type of depression more so than anyone else on this planet. Right. And that's just, like I said, it's not a stat. That's a storm. If you're trying to deal with this, it's trying to get a job, trying to make people respect you, trying to like downplay that whole you've been to prison thing. You know, and then most times we deal with that alone. Now you come home and everyone expects you to just, I guess, pick up where you left off. But what was that? Where did you leave off at? Right? For some of us, there was nothing there before. There was nothing there. No stable home. You didn't have a job. You didn't have a mental health plan. What the hell is that? What is a mental health plan? You're basically rebuilding from scratch. Only this time, people are really watching to see if you are going to fail, right? You building from scratch, but now people are really watching. They don't heard the stories. They don't see media and TV about what goes on in prison or what they think going on. So if they never been there, they really don't know. Now you're handed a checklist, right? First, you're going to have to get an ID. You got to find housing. You got to find a job. Don't forget to check in with your PO if you got one. You can't be around your old crowd. These are all things that you have as a checklist. You might have to go to a few classes. You got to be available. Like for those people, especially who had children, you got to be available for those children, right? Because you ain't been around them. So don't react. You got to stay calm, be perfect, or risk being sent back. And think about this, guys. You need to think about all the while you're still hearing those voices from your past. Maybe it's your own voice. Maybe it's somebody else's. Maybe saying, hey, you're not good enough. You're not ready. You're not worthy. It may be you talking to yourself saying that you can't pull this off. That's trauma talking to you. That is trauma talking. When I came home, I had to train myself to start to believe I deserved a fresh start. That I didn't have to apologize every day just for being free. But that didn't happen overnight. That's why in the book, No Turning Back, I have a section about reclaiming your identity, because navigating systems while carrying shame, anxiety, and PTSD, that's not simple work. That's spiritual warfare. That's a war going on within you. So here's the thing, though. Another part they don't talk about in reentry brochures and shit is that no one tells you that it's okay if you feel like you're underwater. It's okay to feel like you're overwhelmed. It's okay to feel like you can't make it. But I will, and I'm telling you right now, you are not alone in this maze. And that's why the podcast, that's why these books, that's why my life's purpose is built around this. Because the fact that you're still walking, the fact that you're still breathing, despite everything, there's a victory for you, right? There's the way to win. So take your time, honor your progress. Every little progress that you make is a step towards your greatness. And when you stumble, then remember, you learning to walk all over again. Most of us didn't even know how to walk at first anyway, but you're learning to walk all over again. And it's a brand new world because a lot can happen in the time that if you were, locked up for a lot of time, the world has changed. Okay. Even if it's been 5 years, 4 years, the world has changed and you're trying to navigate through that. Right. Um, Another thing that we want to talk about on this specific episode is that we need to realize that healing doesn't come with instructions. To heal, there's no book that you can read or a magic a piece of paper that you can read that will heal you. There's no blueprint handed to you at the gate. There's no magic moment when everything feels like, oh, it's normal again. Healing after trauma, especially that kind that comes with incarceration or homelessness or just dealing with health issue, mental health issues. Sorry about that. It's a journey, one that has to become deeply personal, one that can often feel sometimes heavy, confusing, even lonely. You're gonna feel like you're by yourself. But here's the good news: it is possible to heal, right? And you don't need to have it all figured out to begin. One of the things I always say is that you have to take it slow in order to enjoy this life because it's gone like so fast. Look around you, right? Um, Another key interesting fact is that did you know that citizens who are coming back home, who engage in like trauma informed programs, they are less likely to go back or reoffend. And they're far more likely to maintain employment and stable housing because they're dealing with themselves, they're dealing with the trauma, and they are actually healing. That's not some policy talk, that's real life. Healing impacts your ability to show up in relationships. It impacts your ability to trust somebody and somebody to trust you. To think clearly under stress is vitally important, but if you're not healed, you're going to continue to respond, or I'm sorry, you're going to continue to react instead of respond. Um, it's a deep topic, and the system. Let's just be honest. The system wasn't designed to heal us. It was designed to contain us. You committed a crime or whatever, and now you got to go in this little hole and be contained. So if you're going to heal, you're going to have to be intentional. I was listening to another podcast. I do podcasts, but I listen to them a lot. I forgot which podcast, so don't hold me to it. I promise I will shout you out on the next show. But he was like, you got to be 100% in. And there's no halfway if you're coming talking about change or if you want to have a different direction in your life. You have to be 100% in. You have to be intentional. You have to choose to do the work. You got to work, do some things that it looks like therapy. Sometimes it's going to look like prayer. Sometimes it's going to just be journaling, writing some thoughts down. Sometimes it's just going to be going for a walk, right? Just realizing, hey, I got a chance. I know it might seem bad, but I got a chance. Calling somebody that you trust or that has been mentoring you. It's more than just quitting on yourself, right? It's more than just quitting on yourself. Sometimes you just got to take time. It's going to take work, and it can come in those various forms. Okay. For me, it started with writing, right? Pouring out my thoughts. I was too ashamed to say out loud. I couldn't say that, hey, I wasn't a good dad, right? I couldn't say, you don't want to say shit like that out loud. You don't want to say like I was fucking terrible. You don't want to say like I was a thief or I was a robber. That don't make, or I used drugs. It don't make you feel good. So I started writing the shit down. I'm like, hey man, I really I like drugs or I like taking folks' stuff. And I would look back at it and I said to myself, like, wow, I had to be honest with myself. And that's where like the books, especially No Turning Back, be sure to pick it up. Um, it was born for my pain, but rooted in purpose. I remember one night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, thinking about everyone I hurt. I'm talking about from my mama all the way down to my child, to people, just random folk, right? Everything I lost, I thought about that. And I asked myself, how do I move forward when I don't even know who I am anymore? Because when I looked at it, I was like, "Damn, that's me. That was me. That was the one that, I was the guy that abandoned my children, left them, you know. That's me. I was, you know, robbing people. I was like, that's me. I didn't even know who I was. That's me that like used to steal to, you know, uh, get drugs, right? How do I move forward when I don't even know who I am? If I can't admit who I am, then I can't move forward. That moment, though, that question, when I said, how do I move forward when I don't even know who I am? That was the first step. It wasn't the answer. It was just the willingness to question or ask myself. Because healing ain't about forgetting what happened. Everybody know what happened, especially if you got a record. That shit in the books. It's about refusing to let what happened define who you are trying to become. Some days you're going to feel stuck. Some days you're going to feel free. Both of are part of a process, though. Both of those feelings are part of it. You don't rush it. Don't fake it. Definitely don't do it by yourself. You want to surround yourself with people who see the healed version of you even before you do. And when you fall, and you will fall, you want to fall forward. Okay? You want to do that. So let's talk about what comes next once you've been honest with yourself. Like you've admitted, like, hey, I wasn't the best person. What comes next? Not just release, not just survival, but now you got to think about your legacy. Do I want to go down in history as that person that I looked at in that journal, that I was honest with myself? Do I want to go down in history as that person? Right? And this is where you're going to find a fulfilled life. You're going to find a future with your name on it. Because once you start healing, you begin to realize you're not just here to make it through the day. You're here to build something real. Okay? That's hard to imagine when you've been told all your life what you can't do. When you've been told all your life you ain't shit. When you've been labeled an ex-con or ex-felon or whatever, and that sound louder than your own name. You'll respond faster to someone and say, hey, I don't know, weak ass, I don't know, whatever, whatever they can call you. You can respond to that than your own name. When you've been written off before you even had the chance to show who you really are, that's what I'm talking about. But that's what we need to rewrite. We got to understand where we are first, right? If you understand where you are, how terrible you are, or how the world view you, and you honest with yourself, is that the way you want to go out? Let me say it as clearly as possible, man. You're more than just a statistic. You're more than just somebody just walking around. You're a father. You're a mother. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a father. You might be a mother. You're a builder. You're a thinker. You might be a son. You might be a daughter, a leader, a survivor. You're a visionary. So you're not broken. You're just being rebuilt. That's why you listen to this podcast. Now, I know because I've been there. I know how it feels to wonder if people will ever see me as the new version of me instead of the old headlines or the case files or what I was before. I know how it feels to walk into a room and feel the weight of judgment before you even say anything, before I even say a word. I know what it feels like, but let me challenge you. Build anyway. Brick by brick, man. Choice by choice. Day by day. Minute by minute. Build anyway, man. Start small. Get a steady job. Get a new skill. I mean, first start by realizing like this ain't how I want to go out. Change your circle, right? Learn about finance. Start doing something outside of what you normally do. Learning how to breathe through conflict instead of just exploding, and learning how to love without expecting somebody to cut your throat off. That's building, right? You don't need a mansion or a big ass house, man, or you don't need all that tomorrow. You got to have a foundation today. You have to have something today. So in the book, No Turning Back, please check it out. I talk about the first time I allowed myself to dream again. It was scary as hell, man. You know, just the thought of hope felt dangerous because I kept thinking I'm gonna disappoint myself, man. I'm gonna disappoint the people that had been, been around me for so long. But I wrote it down anyway. I said I'm a dream, man. I want to help people. I want to be able to. I say I want to help others. I want to be more than just a story. I want to be a breeze for people that's walking the same thing or been in the same type situations, or learning to change or change the narrative about how their life was. And through this podcast, through mentorship, through reentry work, through books, I'm doing that. I'm doing it. It's possible, and you can too. Most returning citizens who have stable support and community resources are 70% more likely to avoid reoffending. That's not luck, bro. That's intentional rebuilding. Taking those walks, breathing, learning how to respond instead of reacting. Your future doesn't start when you're perfect. It starts when you decide that you're worth the investment. It starts when you decide that your legacy is worth living, right? I mean, I ain't even gonna lie. And I still have a lot to live for. Okay, that's my purpose. So keep building. And last but not least, man, when people start doubting you, use that as fuel. Hey, I can't say that enough. When people start hating on you or doubting you, man, use that as fuel to say, like, not just to prove them wrong. Because it's not about proving them wrong, but you want to prove to yourself that you were right to believe in something better, right? You were right to believe in something better. So now that we have in this episode unpacked the trauma, walked through the entire maze of reentry, getting a job, and we talked about healing and we started building. Here's the part where you come in. Whether you're a returning citizen yourself, a loved one walking alongside someone on this journey, a community leader, or someone just now realizing how deep this issue can go, this is your invitation to get involved. It's your call to action. But here's the truth. Re-entry and rebuilding your life, it doesn't end with like this podcast, right? It just starts there. It doesn't begin when you get out, right? It doesn't end when you get out. It doesn't end when you get out. It starts there. And trauma recovery isn't a luxury. It's something that you have to do. All right. You have to do it. It's a necessity. We can expect folks to come out whole when they've been through years of pain, neglect, violence, isolation, only to be dropped back into a society with nothing to go off of, no roadmap, right? That's what this podcast is. My purpose is to give you that roadmap. I mean, if you don't have the resources and restoration, you can't recover. There are like 600,000 people released from state and federal prisons each year. We talked about this stat a lot. 600,000 people each year that get released. That's more than 500,000 people trying to find housing, employment, stability, and peace. And often they are doing this while battling untreated trauma. They're battling stigma and they're battling poverty. So what can you do? If you are a returning citizen, if you're just trying to get your life together, man, I want you to take the biggest step of all. You got to believe that healing is your right and not your burden. You can heal. Don't downplay what you've been through. Name it, feel it, and work through it. Don't downplay it, right? Don't come up with like, okay, this is an excuse. I mean, you did it. It was a fact that was part of your life. Don't downplay it. But somehow you have got to realize that when you stumble, you can't reach for help, right? When there's no shame in needing support, man. You cannot be ashamed of needing help, but you got to know that you need help. The only thing that comes out of asking for help or saying that you needed support is just showing your true strength that you realize you can't do it alone. So, like I said, if you're that family member or friend, stop expecting perfection from people. Stop expecting perfection. Start offering presence. Just start being there. Ask that person, that loved one, what they need emotionally, not just like logistically or financially or whatever. Ask them what they need emotionally. Sometimes just listening without judgment is the most powerful form of support. But again, if you are traumatized, that can come off as, I don't know, demeaning or not helpful. So if you're a business owner, let's talk about that, educator or policy maker, invest in second chances. Hire someone who's trying to rebuild. Start funding trauma-informed reentry programs. Let these folks get some money so they can help these folks out here in the street, man. Advocate for policies that treat people as human beings and not just case numbers. So if you read No Turning Back or you heard about it, go buy for somebody. Do that. Because if this episode spoke to you, if what we're doing spoke to you, okay, don't keep it to yourself. Share this podcast. Gift the book to someone who needs hope. Talk about trauma recovery in your circles because a lot of people don't even talk about it. We're not here to change narratives by themselves. We're here to change outcomes, right? At the Conviction Fiction, we stream these conversations directly to you because we believe that real people, real stories, and real truth have power to heal entire communities. So today, make a decision to be a part of that healing. Start with yourself, then reach out. Then let's just build something together. Because when we center that healing um, around us, our personal journey, we don't just change lives. We don't just change our lives. We help save others too. It's amazing what you can do. All right. I want to thank you again for joining the Conviction Fiction. I'm your host, Antoine Rivers. And as always, man, stay positive. You're not doing this stuff alone. And tune in next week. We got some special guests coming up. Thanks for joining.